Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Jackson, and my proposal is on the effect that mood has on the visual perception of art. Now, as stated, I am interested in the ties that emotional intentions and emotional state has on the visual perception of specifically abstract expressionist art. Now, I'll get into this a little bit in the next slide, but there is a difference between representational and abstract art and or visual stimuli in general. Now, I briefly want to mention the definition of perception. Our text defines perception as the way in which we recognize, organize, and make sense of environmental stimuli. Now, I wanted to draw attention to this because I want to look at perception, specifically visual perception, from the top down perspective. Now, as you can guess, in tying mood to visual perception, that is implying that there is more to it than just the object itself, and that's really what I'm getting at. I'm getting at that there is more involved, whether it be past experiences, what we know, how we know it, as well as our current mood that is involved in how and why we perceive things the way that we do. Now, just getting into the main ideas found in the studies that I've researched and the literature that I've been reading, the first thing I want to touch on is representational versus abstract. Now, a lot of the studies that are linking mood to visual perception are specifically looking at representational visual stimuli. And by that, I mean whether it be something as simple as a smiley face or a sad face, that is something that we can directly link to a specific mood. Now, in contrast, abstract is, in a sense, more abstract. There is nothing that is as concrete as a smiley face or a frown face that links to a mood. Now, artists have been seen somewhat in that way, where they are pushing the limits of what visual stimuli is traditionally intended to do. Visual stimuli can be a chair, it can be a table, it can be a cup, and we see that it's representational for that specific thing, a table, a chair, or a cup. Now, in dealing with something more abstract, that link is not there. So, in a sense, an artist is pushing that limit past object identification. Now, theories of how art is viewed, whether it be representational or abstract, have been developed. Down to how our eyes actually bounce around the image. And these two themes, in terms of not only the difference between representational and abstract, but as well as how these two different areas are viewed, are things that I want to include in my study. Now, next I want to touch on music and mood. Now, music has been studied similarly to many other things, even art in general, and it has been found that music has a link to the way we are feeling, our emotional, I guess, our moods in general. And with that, there has been found that music can actually regulate, or it has been used to regulate moods. Now, there have been studies where music has also been used as an emotional prime. And what I mean by that is music, whether it be happy music, sad music, angry music, that song or that playlist is listened prior to the introduction of visual stimuli. And there have been studies that have used mood assessment tests and studies that have not. Now, specifically in this study, I would like to use a mood assessment test just so there is more clarity in what the mood of the participant is. So when using music as an emotional prime to regulate mood, I would like to also utilize the mood assessment test to solidify what that mood is. Now, the third idea that I want to touch on is emotional congruency. Now, congruent and incongruent conditions. They've both been utilized in these studies. And what I mean by that is happy songs with happy faces, sad songs with sad faces. Now, yes, that does go back to the representational visual stimuli, but that is the example that has been used in these past studies. Now, the idea here is that when someone is viewing, or when someone is actually listening to a happy music, a happy face is recognized as more happy, and vice versa. When someone is listening to sad music, a sad face is recognized as more sad. And that emotional congruency is something that I'm expecting to see in this specific study. Now, questions have been raised, or the question has been raised, why have the artist listen to a playlist or have a specific mood when creating their piece of artwork? And we'll get into this a little bit more when I go over methodology, but the reason why is because there is no representational aspect to abstract art. Now, though there is no concrete representational aspect, there is still the intention of the artist. Now, with representational visual stimuli, we all know smiley face means happy. However, adding that additional layer when having the artist have a specific emotion and a specific intention behind their piece, having that be known will allow me to kind of view what that emotional congruency is or is not. Lastly, I wanted to go over visual stimuli and mood. Now, we've already discussed how mood can affect our perception of visual stimuli, but questions have been raised in past studies: can visual stimuli have an effect on mood? And the reason why I wanted to include this is because I think this is more of the common view when speaking about art. We often, or when art is viewed, whether it be museums or otherwise, the actual state and intention of the artist is discussed and studied down to the letter. That is one of the things that is really the basis of art history, is what these artists were going through and what their intentions were at the time of creation. Now, in that, I think there is also an expectation that those who are viewing their art will be able to feel that emotion and feel what the artist was going through at the time. However, as we've already discussed, that is potentially not the case, as the mood and emotional state of the viewer may trump the mood and emotional state of the artist. And that is one of the things I as well would like to study in this specific study. Okay, so now we're at the methodology and the specifics of this study. Now, starting with the participants, I would like to have 20 expressionist senior level painters and 50 test subjects. Now, the reason why I list not only expressionist but also senior level is that I want the artist to not only be familiar with abstract and expressionist art, but I would also like them to be more solidified in their study. Now, by senior level, I actually do mean in college at the senior level, and I want this as well specifically because when in art school, students are more used to creating art under, I guess, specific circumstances. In contrast, when there is an independent artist, they are more used to working at their own pace than when you are in school. Now, when dealing with the participants, when dealing with the materials, both the painters and the test subjects will be asked to create either a playlist or a song that makes them happy or makes them sad. Now, the painters will be asked to make a playlist mainly because of the length of the time that it actually takes to create work. Playing one song over and over for the length of, let's say, 5 hours, that's not going to be as effective as if it's a playlist that invokes that specific emotion. So that is where the difference comes in between the playlist and the song that the test subjects would be asked to identify and create. Now, in terms of the size of the artwork that will be created, 20 by 30 inches in size will be what the artists are asked to create. That's pretty standard when in art school. That provides good space for them to create. Now, getting into the procedure, each of the 50 test subjects will view each of the 20 pieces of artwork once. And I want this to be done under 3 experimental conditions: one without music, one while listening to happy music, and one while listening to sad music. Now, I want to do this specifically so that way the 3 can be compared, and I will be able to see, or we will be able to see, the emotional congruency that is found or is not found under these conditions. Now, the proposed outcome here is that there is going to be some predictability when dealing with the test subject's mood and their visual perception of the visual stimuli. In that, I also believe that there will be emotional congruency. When listening to happy music, I believe that they will be more likely to perceive artwork as happy. And similarly, when listening to sad music, they'll be more inclined to perceive the artwork to be sad. Now, the implications here are not only involving the way we perceive, how we perceive, and why we perceive things the way that we do, more so from the top-down perspective, but I also feel as though that there can be a link to the way art and creativity is utilized in the field of psychology. I have found that creativity and art are often seen as a means to an end, such as art therapy in children and in adults. And understanding how and why we perceive art the way we do can definitely help us when utilizing art and creativity as a means to an end. That concludes my proposal. I hope that you all enjoyed what it is that I had to say, and I'm very interested in hearing your feedback. Thank you.